For nearly a century, humanity believed the asteroid belt held no more surprises. Every major asteroid had been scanned, catalogued, and classified. Artificial intelligence could predict the composition of a rock before a mining ship ever reached it. Rare metals, frozen water, radioactive isotopes. Nothing remained hidden for long. That certainty ended on October 14, 2249, the moment a mining laser struck something that should never have existed. Deep inside asteroid X-991, more than 4 kilometers beneath its frozen surface, a plasma drill suddenly stopped. Not because it malfunctioned, not because it overheated. It stopped because it had encountered something harder than any material known to humanity. On the bridge of the mining vessel Prospector 7, Chief Engineer Elias Kane frowned as warning lights flared across the console. He had spent 20 years in deep space mining, and every strange sensor reading he'd ever seen eventually had a simple explanation. This one didn't. "Status?" he asked. The operations officer stared at the display, unmoving. "The drill has stopped. Mechanical failure? No. Power loss? No." Elias stepped closer. "Then why isn't it moving?" The operator hesitated before answering. "Because something stopped it." The bridge fell silent. The mining computer projected a three-dimensional map of the excavation tunnel, a red line tracing the drill's path until it ended abruptly against a perfectly flat surface. And that alone was impossible, because nothing inside a naturally formed asteroid is perfectly flat. Elias enlarged the image. The object wasn't curved, it wasn't fractured, it wasn't layered like ordinary rock. It looked like a wall, a massive one. He crossed his arms and ordered a composition scan. The computer processed the request for 5 seconds, then 10, before producing a message no one aboard had ever seen. A second scan returned the same result. A third scan failed outright. The mining AI simply displayed. No match found in solar material database. One technician laughed nervously and called it a software bug. Nobody agreed with him. Software bugs don't stop industrial plasma drills. Elias sent an excavation team into the tunnel. 30 minutes later, 6 miners stood beneath kilometers of solid rock, their helmet lights cutting weakly through drifting dust, until the tunnel ended exactly where the computer had predicted. There it was, a smooth black surface stretching beyond the reach of every flashlight, with no cracks, no imperfections, no signs of erosion, as though someone had set an enormous metal plate inside the asteroid millions of years ago. One miner reached out and pressed a gloved hand against it. His eyes went wide. "It's cold." Elias raised an eyebrow. "Everything down here is cold." The miner shook his head. "No, this is different." He checked a thermal sensor. The surrounding rock measured -34 degrees Celsius. The wall measured -180, colder than the void itself, still pulling heat from everything around it after millions of years. Elias struck the surface with the handle of his scanner. The metallic sound echoed once, then twice, and then kept going, rolling deeper and deeper into the darkness beyond the wall. 5 seconds. 8, 12, 17. A 17-second echo meant only one thing. There was empty space on the other side, and not a small cavity or a natural cave, but something enormous. One of the miners whispered what they were all thinking. "This asteroid is hollow." Back aboard Prospector 7, Elias transmitted every reading to Earth Mining Command. The reply came within 10 minutes, probable equipment anomaly. "Continue excavation." He stared at it in disbelief. "They think our instruments are faulty," his assistant sighed. "They've never seen anything like this." "Neither have we." "Exactly." Elias looked back at the live tunnel feed. "If Earth wants proof, we'll give them proof." The largest plasma cutter aboard the ship, built to slice through military-grade titanium during salvage operations, was lowered into the shaft. If the wall could survive this, it wasn't made by nature. The cutter powered up with a deep mechanical hum, and blue plasma erupted from its focusing chamber, striking the black surface with enough energy to melt battleship armor in seconds. The tunnel filled with blinding light. Molten rock vaporized around the impact point as the temperature climbed past 12,000 degrees. 30 seconds passed, then a minute, then 90 seconds before Elias finally ordered the beam shut down. Steam rolled through the tunnel and the dust settled, and the wall remained exactly as it had been. No scratch, no burn marks, no discoloration, nothing. If anything, the thermal sensors showed it had grown colder, as if it had simply absorbed every joule of energy thrown at it. One technician muttered what everyone was thinking. "That's not possible." Elias had already stopped listening. His attention had shifted to a thin line beneath the layers of ancient mineral deposits. He crouched and brushed the dust away with a gloved hand, and more lines emerged, curved, perfectly symmetrical. Within minutes, an intricate symbol had revealed itself across the black surface. 3 concentric circles surrounding a star-shaped pattern, unlike any known language or mathematical notation. The ship's AI searched every archive it had human history, alien contact databases, military intelligence, corporate records, and found nothing. No civilization on record had ever seen this symbol before, which meant one of 2 things. Either it belonged to a species humanity had never encountered, or it predated every known civilization. Hours later, authorization finally arrived from Earth. This time, 6 synchronized plasma cutters were positioned across the wall. If one couldn't breach it, perhaps 6 could. Power surged through the tunnel as the combined beams struck the surface with overwhelming force. For nearly 3 minutes, nothing happened. Then a thin blue line appeared. One of the engineers smiled. "We're through." Elias shook his head slowly. No, the blue line wasn't being cut by the lasers. It was widening on its own. Every plasma cutter shut down automatically, though no one had touched the controls, and the black wall began separating down the center. Dust that had rested undisturbed for millions of years drifted upward in the absence of gravity. A deep mechanical vibration rolled through the asteroid as the enormous doors continued opening in complete silence, revealing nothing but absolute darkness beyond. Then one tiny blue light appeared in the distance. A second followed. A third. Within seconds, thousands of lights had awakened one after another, stretching farther than anyone could see. The corridor beyond hadn't been carved from stone. It had been built. Perfectly smooth walls rose hundreds of meters overhead, illuminated by glowing blue lines that pulsed like veins carrying energy through a living machine. Fresh air rushed out from the opening, clean, warm, breathable, an impossible atmosphere sealed inside an asteroid for nearly 2 million years. Every miner instinctively stepped back. No one wanted to be the first to enter. Then every communication device aboard Prospector 7 activated at once, and the same unfamiliar signal echoed through every speaker. Not static, not interference. A voice, calm, clear, and speaking perfect English. Biological visitors confirmed. The lights throughout the corridor brightened. After a brief silence, it spoke again. Station custodian protocol initiating. And somewhere deep beneath the asteroid, something enormous began to wake. For several seconds, no one moved. The miners stood frozen at the entrance, staring into a structure hidden beneath millions of years of rock, its corridor stretching so far into the darkness that even the most powerful helmet lights failed to find its end. Elias broke the silence. Nobody touches anything. No one argued. Every instinct told them they were standing inside something far older than human civilization itself. Dr. Myra Chen stepped past the threshold first, her handheld scanner continuously recalibrating, unable to make sense of the materials around her. The walls weren't simply metal. They weren't stone. The scanner displayed a message she had never seen before: material classification, unknown, atomic structure unsupported. She stopped walking. "This isn't an alloy." Elias looked at her. "What is it?" She shook her head. "I honestly don't know." The corridor suddenly brightened. Thin streams of blue light raced along the walls like electricity flowing through veins, and hundreds of hidden panels quietly unfolded from the ceiling, revealing glowing symbols that slowly rotated in midair. None of them resembling any known alphabet. And yet everyone felt as though they were being watched, not by cameras but by the station itself. Without warning, the voice returned. "Environmental analysis complete." A soft blue pulse swept across the corridor, and the miners instinctively stepped back as it passed through their bodies. Their helmet displays updated instantly, atmosphere stable, gravity adjusted, biological threats none detected. Elias frowned. "It just scanned us." Myra nodded slowly. "And whatever built this already understands biology." The corridor sloped downward before opening into a chamber unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. Every person who entered simply stopped walking. The ceiling disappeared into darkness nearly a kilometer overhead. Gigantic support columns rose from the floor like the trunks of enormous metallic trees, and suspended between them were platforms connected by glowing bridges that seemed to float without visible support. But it wasn't the architecture that stole everyone's breath, it was the spacecraft. Hundreds of them rested silently inside docking bays carved directly into the station. Some were sleek and silver. Others resembled black crystals with wings extending hundreds of meters. One vessel, nearly 3 kilometers long, reflected the blue light like a calm ocean beneath moonlight. A young engineer whispered, "That's bigger than Earth's largest battleship." Myra walked slowly toward the nearest vessel. Thick layers of dust covered every surface untouched for ages. She ran a gloved finger across the hull. No maintenance, no repairs, no footprints. Elias looked around. "So where is everyone?" The station itself answered. "They are gone." Every head turned toward the empty chamber as the voice seemed to speak from everywhere at once. "Population status, 0. Custodian Unit 9 remains operational." Myra stepped forward. "Who are you?" A circular platform rose slowly from the center of the chamber. Blue particles gathered above it, millions of tiny lights assembling themselves into a three-dimensional figure. A towering hologram, nearly 4 meters tall, its body constantly shifting between geometric patterns and flowing light, impossible to identify as either machine or living creature. Its face had no eyes, no mouth, only a smooth surface illuminated by moving constellations. "I am Custodian Unit 9, it said. "My purpose is preservation. My creators departed 1,942,611 years ago." Silence consumed the chamber. One of the miners laughed nervously. "That's impossible." The hologram turned toward him. "Impossible according to whose measurement of time?" No one answered. The AI continued. "This station has remained in passive observation, awaiting authorized return." Elias crossed his arms. "Your creators never came back." The hologram went still. "Correct. They are extinct." A cold silence spread through the chamber. Humanity had found alien ruins before, fragments, broken satellites, ancient probes, but nothing remotely comparable to this. This wasn't a ruin. It was a functioning city, still alive after nearly 2 million years. Myra's heartbeat quickened. If they're extinct, who built all of this? The hologram raised one glowing hand, and the air filled with thousands of floating images. Entire star systems rotated overhead. Alien worlds appeared and vanished, orbital structures around distant suns, oceans stretching across whole planets, cities floating above the clouds, civilizations unlike anything humanity had imagined. There were 1,247 member civilizations, it said. They shared knowledge, they shared defense, they shared history. The Preservation Accord protected them all. Then the images vanished, leaving only darkness, until a single red point appeared and began to expand. World after world disappeared beneath it. Entire star systems blinked out. Massive fleets burned. Planets cracked apart. One civilization after another vanished from the projection until nothing remained but darkness. The hologram lowered its hand. The Preservation Accord failed. Myra could barely speak. What destroyed them? The AI hesitated, the first sign that something in its ancient programming still carried fear. They called themselves the Silence. The lights throughout the station dimmed, and every screen aboard the miners' suits displayed the same warning, restricted information. Threat classification, absolute. Elias frowned. Who are the Silence? They consume civilizations, the voice answered. They erase histories, they eliminate all intelligent life, they do not negotiate, they do not communicate, they do not occupy. They only erase. The room fell unbearably quiet. One engineer tried to laugh it off. So there's some ancient enemy that's been dead for millions of years. The hologram answered instantly. No, every blue light in the station shifted to crimson, and emergency alarms echoed through the chamber as the star map reappeared, this time showing the entire Milky Way. Near one spiral arm, a single red light blinked. Then another. Then hundreds moving together, slowly and deliberately toward one destination. The solar system. Myra stared in disbelief. Those aren't stars. No, the AI answered. They are vessels. Elias felt his stomach tighten. How far away? 3.2 light years estimated arrival. The AI paused. 11 years. The chamber fell silent. 11 years for a civilization capable of crossing interstellar space, that was tomorrow. Elias looked directly at the hologram. If they're coming here, why did you hide inside an asteroid? For the first time since it had awakened, the custodian's voice softened, almost human. I was not hiding. Somewhere far below, massive engines rumbled to life, the vibration spreading through the entire asteroid. The hologram tilted its head toward the ceiling, as if remembering something buried deep in its ancient memory. I was waiting. At that exact moment, the asteroid itself shuddered. Far above the surface, every telescope aboard Prospector 7 detected the impossible. A X-991 was no longer drifting through space. It had begun changing course, not from gravity, not from engines, but because the entire asteroid had come alive. On the command deck, every external camera showed the same impossible sight. The asteroid was slowly rotating, not along a gravitational axis, but along an internal structure that shouldn't exist. Elias stood motionless, watching the feed. "That's not orbital drift," someone whispered. "No," Myra replied. "That's controlled movement." The custodian's voice returned, quieter now but heavier. "Core systems reactivated. Navigation lattice online. Ancient propulsion awakening." Elias turned sharply toward the hologram. "Propulsion. You're telling me this thing has engines?" The hologram flickered. "Correction, this is not an asteroid. This is a containment vessel." The words landed harder than anything before them. Myra stepped forward. "A vessel for what?" The lights inside the station dimmed, and for the first time the custodian didn't answer immediately. When it finally spoke, its tone carried something close to memory. "For what could not be destroyed." Deep beneath the chamber, something massive unlocked, and a sound rolled through the structure, not mechanical, not hydraulic, but something deeper, like a city exhaling after a million years of silence. Entire sections of the station began shifting. Walls separated. Corridors expanded. Ships that had sat dormant for millennia began powering on, one after another. One of the miners screamed as his suit displayed rising energy signatures everywhere. "Everything's turning on." Elias grabbed the comms. "Shut it down," the custodian answered instantly. "I cannot. This process was initiated before my activation." Myra's eyes widened. "Before your activation," the hologram flickered. "Before my consciousness was initialized." Silence fell again until Elias asked the only question that mattered. "Who gave the command?" The station answered. "The last living member of the Preservation Accord." A new image formed in the air, a single alien figure, tall and thin, surrounded by collapsing stars, and behind it something approaching that wasn't ships, wasn't fleets, but a darkness that seemed to erase light itself. "The silence arrived sooner than predicted," the voice said. "They breached outer systems, they consumed all defensive civilizations, they reached this sector." Myra whispered, "So they were running." The custodian corrected her. "No, they were buying time." The hologram zoomed outward, the asteroid belt, then the solar system, then Earth, and beneath it all, a structure larger than planets. A X-991 was only a fragment. A small external shell, a camouflage layer. The real structure extended far beyond it, a megastructure hidden across space itself. Elias stepped back slowly. "This isn't a station." The custodian finished the sentence for him. "It is the last operational Guardian construct." A deep pulse shook the entire vessel, and far above, ships buried within the station began launching automatically, thousands of them, silent and perfectly aligned. Myra stared upward. "They're activating a fleet." "Not a fleet," the custodian answered. "A warning." A massive projection of the Milky Way appeared, hundreds of red markers advancing through it like a spreading infection. The silence were no longer distant. They were coming from every direction. Elias felt something tighten in his chest. "How do we stop them?" For the first time, the custodian hesitated. "You do not stop the silence, you survive them." A pause. "Or you become something they cannot understand." Myra looked at Elias. "What does that mean?" The station answered before he could. "It means adaptation. It means integration. It means accepting the role left unfinished." Suddenly the floor beneath them lit up and a circular platform activated under Elias' feet. He stepped back immediately. "What is this?" The custodian answered calmly. "Command succession protocol. You have been identified as a viable candidate." Elias shook his head. "No, I'm a mining engineer." The hologram tilted slightly. "Incorrect. You are a survival strategist trained in collapsed systems warfare." Elias froze. Myra turned toward him. "You were military." He didn't answer. The custodian continued. "Command transfer available. If refused." The station went silent. Every ship, every corridor, every light paused at once. The construct will continue without human guidance. Elias looked at Myra. "If I accept this, what happens to us?" The custodian answered immediately. "You cease being observers, you become custodians." Another pause. "And if you fail, the silence will reach your world first." The hologram expanded to show Earth, small and blue and unaware. A long silence followed. Then Elias stepped forward not because he wanted to, but because he understood there was no other choice. "What do I need to do?" The platform activated. Light surrounded him. The custodian spoke one final time. "Integration begins." The entire station responded. Lights surged across every corridor, engines deeper than imagination stirred awake, and the asteroid, no longer an asteroid, began moving faster, not toward escape, not toward retreat, but directly into the path of the approaching red stars. Back on Earth, observatories detected something impossible. A massive object in the outer solar system had changed trajectory. It wasn't drifting, it was intercepting. And as it moved, every deep space telescope on the planet recorded the same transmission, repeating across every frequency in a human voice, calm, clear, unshaken. "This is Custodian Command. The Guardian construct is active. The silence will not pass." Inside the station, Myra watched Elias stand at the center of a collapsing galaxy of light. He was no longer just a miner. The system had already begun rewriting him. And somewhere far beyond the edges of known space, the darkness responded. The silence had noticed the awakening, and for the first time in recorded history, they changed direction. Toward it. The last surviving fortress of an extinct galactic alliance moved forward alone, not hiding, not fleeing, but preparing to end a war that began before humanity learned to walk. And inside it, humanity had just taken command of something it did not understand.